I do have a question, though. I do have a
question. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I love questions.
Because obviously, and this is something I've noticed in many conversations with Orthodox individuals, so much seems to hinge on the addition of the Filioque. Now, from my perspective, as somebody who's very much Anglican through and through my whole experience, my whole life, I've never been able to grasp why the addition of that word is such a big deal. It seems like it could be an honest disagreement about something that really isn't essential to salvation. That's how I look at it. I don't think God picks and chooses whether or not you're going to heaven based on whether or not you believe the Holy Spirit proceeds from the Father or the Father and the Son. So I have never really understood why something that seems so theologically small has become so ecclesiastically important.
Okay, so that you beg the question: is it theologically small? But besides that, I would ask you.
I don't intend to. That was not. That's me saying from my perspective. It looks to me to be something that's theologically small.
Okay. So have you read before? I want to answer the question with another question, but before we get to that, have you read Saint Photius's great Mystagogia of the Holy Spirit, or Saint Gregory Palamas's treatise on the procession? Okay.
I'm not very familiar with the Eastern Fathers.
Yeah. So either these are monumental works in the 8th or 9th century, and then in the 13th or 14th century by two great church fathers, both of them coming down hard on the Filioque as a great Trinitarian heresy. If you're not familiar with those documents or the literature, then it would make sense. You would say, well, what's the big deal? Because that's the Western position pretty much, especially in the 20th century. Like, hey, let's just get beyond it. But of course, if you're not informed, and you're not going to be sensitized to what the problem is. But let me ask you a question, because the way you posited it is really interesting. And I think that's more important. It's more interesting. In the 4th century, we had massive, we had martyrs over the question of one letter, homoousios or omiousios, right? Mm-hmm. Homoousios was of one essence. Omi was like of one like an essence, like there was a likeness. It wasn't one essence, and that was a position that actually a lot of people took for a while until finally the Orthodox position won out. But there were and then of course you had the Arians, you had the Eunomians, you had all kinds of heresies that denied refused to accept homoousios. That's one word. So why wouldn't people in the 4th century? Come on, what's the big deal? Did anybody in the 4th century, any church father say, this is a minor thing, and what's important is you love your neighbor. What's important is this kind of thing you hear all the time in the 20th century, where people are, not you, I'm not talking about you, but people are grossly illiterate, and they love to to pontificate on theological matters, and so these things were really matter to church fathers again and again in the first millennium, because again, I'm going to say this again, because it wasn't really about a word. It wasn't really about a concept. It wasn't a theoretical question. It wasn't a speculative theology question. It was a expression of the life and a sign that the life had been lost. And then the pride doubled down and created the separation. And so it was both a theological, spiritual, and pastoral matter that then the devil got in and was able to create the division. The division was not insignificant. In fact, the church fathers, when they dealt with heresy, what they were dealing with was really the problem of division. It was theological, but they were trying to stave off the division, because it is an ontological reality you have to live in and in communion with the church. So the devil wants to divide and conquer. He doesn't care what heresy you adopt. He wants you. So the occasion is the heresy. The reality is the division. And so it matters that they doubled and tripled down on the Filioque, because it was actually an expression of their pride and arrogance and rejecting the church's way, not just the church's theology, but the way of the Orthodox, right? Mm-hmm. So it expresses so much. It's not just it's a philosophical question. No, it's not actually. It has huge implications on the way we understand how the church lives, what the church is. And you understand what I mean? I mean,
I definitely understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. So I think that points to the deeper question, because if you're a speculative theologian, you look at these things and you say, well, come on, what's the big deal? I can't figure this out. It's very philosophical. Yeah, well, of course, all the heresies were like that. So then what were the church fathers doing in the 4th, 5th, 6th century arguing about these things? obviously it wasn't just about some speculative theology. It was about life.
All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate the answer. It's very important. Yeah, it's a very informative answer because, like I said, I've never totally understood the Orthodox perspective. So that definitely gives me a greater understanding.
Yeah, I don't think the Orthodox position oftentimes presented in its fullness with regard to life and ethos. And all those things are inseparable because we end up kind of defaulting to the paradigm of the West, which is speculative theology. I mean, that's scholasticism, right? I'm going to sit down. I'm going to think about it. I'm not all scholastics were like that, but I'm just saying that's the tendency in the West. Philosophizing about God. That's not patristic theology at all. It's actually repugnant, the patristic theology. It's rejected. It cannot be. You cannot sit and philosophize about God. You're in delusion in the patristic context.
All right.